The following video, I just wanted to say this disclaimer. I am no expert leather worker. I have learned a lot and I'm continuing to learn, and I enjoy it. So I'm just showing you a little technique that I have learned from other people, and I am by no means any kind of expert leather worker. So there you go. That's my disclaimer. I decided I'm going to show you how I do my quilted pattern. This is not my own design. It's something I saw on the interwebs. And there's so many videos out there that I can't just point to like one person and say I got the idea from them. It's just a whole bunch of videos, and some of them even call it different names. I'm calling it a quilted leather pattern. So I'm going to show you how I do this. But I got to stop this and wipe the lens off on my camera. It's got some dust on it. Alrighty. Might be a little time consuming. I'm also going to do another video of my buffing room. Somebody asked me a question about how I buff my knives, and it's kind of a process. So here I got a set of dividers, and when I pick the distance apart that I'm going to make the lines, I just base it on how big the leather is. Like if I were to do my dinner skinner sheath, I would make this smaller, make the lines closer together. So basically all I do is stick it in the center of the line I've started and poke a little hole, and then take this ruler. It's not a ruler anymore because over the years, acetone, everything's come off of it. You got to hold this really tight. If you're going to do this, I would suggest buying a ruler that is cork backed so it doesn't slide around. The way I get it to not slide around is I wet the leather. So here we go. This is my groover. Grooving. And then I do a second one, but not quite as deep. Damn it. I'll find a piece of scrap. Because sometimes it gets stuck. It's about time for a new one. Yeah, I've been thinking about the Knife Makers Guild, and the more I think about it, the more I wonder, what is my motivation? And, you know, it boils down to one thing. In all honesty, my motivation is I want to be able to say, hey, my knives are good enough to join this organization. And it's $50 a year. Is that a good enough motivation? I think it's... I don't want to get to a position where I feel like I can brag. Knife making is a journey that never ends. There's no end to it. Even Kyle Royer, who, if you've ever seen Kyle Royer's knives, you'll know what I'm talking about. I know enough about Kyle Royer to know that in his eyes, everybody else can look at him and see that he has achieved a level of knife making that is just indescribably perfect. But I promise you, in his eyes, he's not done learning or improving. And that's why I say knife making is a never-ending journey, and I'm sure there are people who think they've learned all they can and have no desire to get better, or think they're as good as anyone could ever possibly be. I haven't met anybody like that, but I'm sure they exist. They exist in all walks of life. So, if they don't contact me, and that's the Lone Star Knife Makers Guild, if they don't contact me, I'm going to look at it as probably a good omen. And like I said earlier, you know what? I may not put, that's a long clip, and I just want to, what I'm talking about is, there's this Texas Knife Makers Guild, and they're kind of selective about who they allow to join. And in retrospect, I think they only want people who forge their knives out of unknown steel. And I say unknown steel. They say they know what it is, but there's no way you can go cut a leaf spring off a car and know exactly what kind of steel you're getting. It's just like the people that make knives out of saw blades and lawnmower blades. If you don't know the exact content of carbon and chromium and nickel, whoa, boy, that was almost a bad one. That's the razor knife. Oh boy, I'm going to close that blade and put it to the side. If you don't know the metal content, you do not know how to heat treat it. And if you don't know how to heat treat it, you're selling people a bill of goods if you say you do. And if you don't know the exact metal content of the various metals, nickel, chromium, carbon, you don't know how to heat treat it. And that's just a scientific fact. You can't argue with science unless you're Dr. Fauci. Then you make up science as you go. I don't know if I'm in camera all this time. So, it's not likely, the more I think about it, that those people are wanting stock removal knife makers, that's what I am, in their club. We'll see. I'm not going to apologize for making the kind of knives I make. I'm not going to apologize for not hammering my knives out on an anvil, because some other people that do that, and you know, they place themselves, not all, believe me, there's but I've encountered a lot of people who look down on stock removal knife makers simply because it makes them feel a little bit better about their own knives. That's my theory. I actually had a discussion with this guy who called me a cheater because I don't go to a junkyard and pull a leaf spring off a car and make a knife out of it. I buy steel, and I get a sheet along with that steel telling me exactly what its content is. And so I'm a cheater because I use known steel, which I find kind of bizarre. But some people are not able to feel good about their own work unless they can find a way to denigrate the work of others. And I've especially found that to be true of people who can't make whatever, I'm using knives, but let's just say you built model airplanes and you couldn't find a way to make yourself better at making model airplanes. So to make yourself feel better, you denigrate the work of other people that have figured out a way to make better model airplanes, and in my case, knives. There's this guy on one of the forums I'm a member of that called me a cheater because I don't go and hammer my knives out of leaf springs or some other, railroad spikes or whatever. And I've got no problem with people making knives out of whatever steel they want. But I do have a problem with people saying that because I don't do that, my knives are somehow less valuable than their knives, which I find kind of silly, but alright, I'm going to do one more up here. Now this is how I'm going to do this. I'm just going to eyeball it. Do I want to go square? Do I want to make squares? Or do I want to make diamonds? So I'm going to look at the center here. No, that's not how I'm going to do that. I'm going to start here. I think I'm going to make diamonds. My point is, some people aren't happy just making the knives the way they make them. They're not happy unless they can tear other people's work apart. I've encountered this more than once on these forums, so it's actually, I've encountered it often enough that it is something that really makes you pause and think about what makes people tick sometimes. I've encountered it often enough, even back in the old days when I had my truck, that I would polish and wax and I had chrome everywhere. I was very, very proud of that truck. I loved that truck. But on occasion I would encounter people that would call it ugly because it was a Kenworth. And it didn't matter that I loved my truck. What mattered was they didn't love my truck. And it used to just make me chuckle. Instead of just enjoying their truck, they had to badmouth my truck. I've encountered them people in every walk of life over many, many different things, whether it be a truck or a knife or a model airplane. Alright, I got something stuck in here, so this is a little bit wet. Oh, good Lord. All right. Took me a minute. I'm just going to run it real light. There we go. Anyway, those kind of people are everywhere, and over everything, even something as silly as how much chrome you had on your truck or what color your truck was. I've never understood those people, and at some point you just got to give up trying to understand people who take more pleasure out of disparaging your work instead of improving their own work. I know this is going to be a long video, but I'm just going to, I don't even know, quilted pattern leather. How to make a quilted pattern on a leather sheath, I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of forums that are like that. I'm encountering more and more. Here's what I've noticed. As my knives improve in appearance, that I have more and more detractors trying to get me to feel bad about my knives instead of feeling good about my knives. That's pretty weird. And you know, it's sort of like adults who never got past grammar school. You know, you're a poo-poo head, that kind of thing. And you would think that at our age you wouldn't encounter that, but it is very, very common, and I've encountered it frequently. Even, I'm not, you know, even someone I thought was a friend, as my knives improved, got worse and worse at saying bad things about my knives. And I was to the point where I just stopped trying to figure out why and just deleted them out of my life. He didn't just say it, he said it to people I knew who told me, hey, you know what he said about your knives? And I was saying, I just don't understand it. I've done nothing but been a friend and supportive to him. I don't get it. But that's just one of dozens and dozens and dozens that you encounter, and it's the same mentality, childish. Instead of being happy for me, they're mad. Even something as innocuous as owning your truck and being proud of it, there was never a dull moment where people would just let you enjoy your truck. They would have to insult your color choice or your brand or I'll give you another example. I put a picture of my truck, my motorcycle, on my Facebook page, and somebody said, I didn't know who it was, nobody I recall. I've got like, I don't know, 200 something friends on Facebook, if you call them people you don't know friends. And he said, so you fell for the hype, huh? Because I bought a Harley. And now I've had every brand of motorcycle out there, and they were all enjoyable. I had fun on every motorcycle I ever had. It's just, I like Harleys. I like the sound, I like the feel, I like the looks, I like the engines, I know how to work on them. And I've never had a motorcycle that didn't come along with its own problems, no matter what brand you had. And I've never thought because I had a Harley, I was better than, or I enjoyed riding more. But you have those people. Now, I have in the past joked about Ford and Chevy, but you got to be stupid to not know that I'm joking. I mean, now I have a Honda, so now I joke about Fords. I mean, it's just joking, and most people know I'm joking. Although every once in a while you come across somebody who takes me serious. Years ago, I replaced cab mount bushings on a friend's truck. It was a Ford. And in the video, I joked about, since those cab mount bushings failed so early in the truck's life, I said they must have been Chevy parts. Now, who wouldn't know that that was an attempt at humor? I had a guy leave a really nasty comment about my attempt at humor, and I replied to him. I said, "You gotta be really stupid to not understand that that was an attempt at humor. I mean, how could you not know that was a joke?" And you know, those kind of people who are serious and can't take a joke, you can't joke with them, and you can't explain your humor to them. You just have to move on. And then you have people who really want to be offended. They look for reasons to be offended, and I've encountered them too. Our local Wascom Facebook page is a perfect example of the perpetually offended, which is why I stopped posting on our local Wascom Facebook page. I made a joke about COVID leaving, and I said, "Wait, don't go. What about the midterms?" You know? And only a couple of people had a problem with it, but they were so loud that the administrator took my joke down. And the joke was, I'm sure you get it, that COVID was a means of getting people to use mail-in ballots, be afraid to go vote, and the mail-in ballots could be manipulated. Whether you believe that or not, you get the joke. But that infuriated some Karens. I'm going to do one more. All right, now let me put this stuff away real quick. You know how I am. And I'm going to hit this with a little bit of water. Here we go. Now this is going to take some doing here, but you'll see. Well, anyway, I hope I haven't talked your ear off. Probably have. Just me thinking out loud. Shit. I gotta be careful. I have such a hard time holding on to this with that thumb. I've had nothing but trouble since I broke it and then had to have it surgically fixed. It's really hard to hold on to stuff tight enough. I guess I should tell you the whole story. I spent 2/3 of my life I spent by myself in the cab of a truck. And during those years, people and the world changed around me. And being in the truck, I didn't know it until I come out of the truck and looked around and had to understand and adapt to the world that had changed without me knowing it or becoming aware of it. And I was very, very disappointed in my fellow man. People that become petty and liars and lazy. Because when I came off the road, I got a job working local. And the people I had to work around were lazy men. And I guarantee you, people my age, baby boomers, who have worked their whole life, have probably noticed the same thing that I've noticed. That people have changed, and not in a better way. That's a lot of hammering. Here, I'll let you have a look at that. Isn't that cool? I know when I dye this, and what tends to happen is these areas dye darker just because the dye pools up there, and it has a really, really unique effect. Days. Yep, I remember my shock. My very first job was working in the oil field. And you had 75% of the men who were hard workers, honorable men, smart men, decent men, and you had 25% that just ruined the job for everybody and destroyed equipment and drove like a bat out of hell and gave everybody at the company a bad name. And because of that 25%, the cops would, really watch all of you, no matter how good you were driving or how conscientious you were. You were only as good as that 25% that really didn't even deserve a job. And then the theft. I remember my shock at something getting stolen from me. That was such a simple little thing. Everybody has a favorite coffee cup. Maybe not everybody, but most people who drink coffee. And as you get older, you embrace routine more. Well, I had a coffee cup that was sort of like a Yeti. It was an insulated cup. And I would drink my last, I didn't live far from where I worked, so I would pour my last cup of coffee, drive to work, and while I was at work, I would drink my last cup of coffee while I was getting my paperwork done. And I turned my head for 1 second. Now I'm at a communal table where all the drivers sat around and did their paperwork, right? And I got up and I handed my paperwork in and I came back to the table. I'm talking about, I'm gone 12 seconds, 15 seconds. And somebody took my coffee cup. You couldn't mistake it for another coffee cup. It was one of a kind. It was a BC Truck coffee cup. And they stole my coffee cup. And then not long after that, I had some tools stolen. In the oil field, it was a really dirty job. And the mud stank, and the oil you'd get on your shoes stank. And I did not want to get that stank and mud inside my leather upholster, carpeted pickup truck. So I bought a junk car to keep all my tools in and to go back and forth to work in. And same thing. I did my paperwork and I left the hatch open on the back of my car. And I went in and I handed my paperwork in and came back out, and somebody had reached into my hatch and stole some of the tools out of the back of my car in 15 or 20 seconds that I was gone. I'd never encountered such theft and dishonest men. People who, and you would see them all over the place, pulled over sleeping in the trucks. They paid you for 12, 14 hours a day, and they paid you really well. And I would constantly see these people pulled over behind garages, behind gas stations, while they were supposed to be working, sound asleep. And they would get 6 hours work done in a 12-hour shift and get paid what everybody else was getting paid, but for only half the work. And it just blew my mind that they were okay with it, that they were okay taking that money from that company, and that the company was okay letting them get away with it. And I think little things like that, the more and more my eyes were opened up about the kind of world we live in now, the society we live in, and what men have turned into, the more I am happy to have this piece of property and have not one, not two, but 3 gates separating me from the outside world. I'm very happy to have this where I'm at. do you think of that? So now we die. Now we must die. Give me a second. Let me find the die I'm going to use. Saddle tan and light brown. Let me just get a look at what this is going to look like here. Well, I'll tell you, that's a little darker than I wanted to go with the initial, with the main color. So let me find a lighter tan. That's saddle tan. Let's try, this is English Bridal. Yeah, that's still, it's too dark. I want to get a lighter tan than that. All right, this is British tan. Let's try British tan. Yeah, I think I'm going to go with this. Yeah, I am, because this will dry about 3 shades lighter than that. Okay, so that's what I'm going to use, British tan. Here we go. First thing I'll do is dye the back. Okay. All right, let's do it. Well, you go through some dye. now do the edges. Alright, let that dry for just a second. Then fold this over, sew it, and then put my webbing in the middle. We're getting there. I'm going to shut you off. We'll be back when this dries a little bit. The deer is just outside the fence, and she's just like a few feet away from where we've been feeding them. And I called my wife and told her that her deer was here. And that's the one we call Pinhead, because she got a little skinny tiny head. Anyway, my wife should be along here any minute now with some food for the deer. And I think it actually sees the movement of my wife. She. And we kind of think she may have raised a baby up around here, because the other day my wife did see a baby that, that was running up and down this fence, outside the fence. So he is up the top of the hill there. This is one of the reasons I like living here. You're away from people, and when the deer aren't over here, it's the cows. See that oak tree right there? Just to the right of that tree is where I've been throwing the food out. Well, I did a thing. Went ahead and sewed my belt loop on, and grooved my stitching groove. And this is not lightening up like I hoped it would, so this is going to be a lot darker than I anticipated, but that's all right. I'll show you this in the light when it's all done, but right now what I'm going to do is wet this down in the middle so I can fold it over, because see this line here? I'm going to put my barge leather glue on here, and then put this there. And then some glue on top of this. Fold it over. And then see all them clamps up there? I clamped this together for about 20 minutes. And so it'll stick. And then I take the clamps off so it doesn't leave indentations in the leather. I do use these on either side to in between my clamps, so I don't leave marks on the leather. I'm probably going to have to go and open up another one of these, but I'll see if I can get this side done and then get this stuck to it. Alright, I'm going to give this just a few minutes to stick. And then I'll take the clamps off and give it, about 30 minutes before I go to hammering my stitching holes through it. We'll be back. Alright. I've got this glued together, and I think it's dried enough for me to try and hammer my lacing holes through there. And here's where I run into a problem. I'm not 100% certain this groove on the back is going to line up with a groove in the front. And here's what happens. You see how the top is not lined up with the bottom? I'm talking about right here. The bottom is not quite 1/8 of an inch to the right. So that means and you know, when I glue these together, that's the first thing I do is make sure that the edges are perfectly aligned. And through the drying process, they slide. So I don't know how to stop that. I'm trying different things. I'm even thinking about hammering a hole or two and then sewing it and doing that at the, intervals. I don't know. Or maybe sticking something through the holes to make sure they stay lined up. But now, when I hammer my lacing holes through here, they're probably not going to fall in that groove. Which, I'm really trying to address that. I'll figure it out. Alrighty, that's what I'm going to do next is hammer my holes through there. But I want to drink my cup of coffee and get to work on that. Okay, I got her sewed up. And this is way darker than it was on my test piece. So I'm going to use a darker brown as my edge fade. But this is what we're looking like. Stitches are nice and in that groove, except over here, right up to the top there, it goes out of the groove just a little bit. Not terrible. So now I take my razor and I cut this extra off, and then I go to my other shop and sand it. And I even sand, I round the corners off. I'll show you. I'll get this cut off with my razor. All right, that is trimmed. And now we go into the other shop where I can use my sander. All right, noise alert. That was 80 grit on the belt sander. Now I have taken some 180 and I've sanded this. Now I'm at 320 and I'm going to sand all the little hairs off. And it makes a huge, huge difference in the finished product, the finished edge. Okay, I'm going to use a chocolate brown. Let's see, where is it? Yeah. So what I'm going to do is, just so I'm not here all day trying to get it to soak in, I run some chocolate brown down here with a Q-tip. I make a few passes and then I come back and do my fade because I want the edge to be really dark. Okay. Well, I'm thinking I'm going to move you so you can see me do my fade. And that'll be the end of it. Well, no, I'll show you how I do my edges. We are not done yet. So, yeah, I'm going to move you over closer. All right, let's see if I can do this without making a big mess. think that's it. All right, I gotta let that dry. I gotta clean this up. We'll be back. So I'm not sure if that's in the right spot or not, but we'll try. This is beeswax, and what I do is rub it where I want to smooth the edges. And I'm fixing to use a tool here that's really loud, so you may want to get ready to turn the volume down if it is. So altogether, it's taken me about 6 hours to make this sheath. Okay, here's the tool. This is a slicking tool. This is just a, let me see where you're at here. That's just a wooden dowel and a Dremel. Here we go. Now we just let that cool off for a minute. Then we take a coarse rag. Some use denim, but this is what I have. This is just a coarse shop rag. And you rub it. And what the wax does is lay down the hairs. Actually, what happens is you create heat with this, and the wax melts into the hairs, and then you rub it with a rough cloth, and it lays the hairs down real smooth. Wait till you see it. It's just amazing how you can make leather this shiny and smooth. The edge, the rough edge. All right, let me see. Can you see that? You know what? I'm going to take you off there and zoom you in. I don't believe it. I did this whole thing thinking you were recording, and you weren't. You were on photo. And now I'm past the point, so I had to explain you what I did. Yeah, I can't believe I did that. All right, this is beeswax. And I take the beeswax and I rub it on the edge. And then I take the Dremel with this wooden dowel in it, and you run it, you turn it on and you run it up and down here at a medium speed. And what it does is melt the beeswax into the rough edge of the leather. And once you get it all melted in and all coated, you let this cool down. And then you take a rough rag, that's a shop rag, and you rub it and you rub it and you rub it until it's all shiny and smooth. Anyway, there you have it. Let me go ahead and put the knife in there. I'll show you what it looks like all together. All right, I got daylight coming in the window. I thought I'd show it to you with some daylight. So, I hope you found that interesting. That's it. That's done. I'm going to, I have not got a reply still from that guild, and I suspect they won't be replying, so I'm probably going to give it a day or two and then ship this to the person that's paid for it. I was going to use it, beat the hell out of it and all that, but I don't think I'll be able to get this finish back that I have on here. And I'll show you just in case you haven't seen the knife yet. That's not scratches, that's stuff from the sheath. Anyway, that's it. We're done. And that's probably the sharpest I've ever gotten a blade right there.